going to go through some how to scale as a startup. And we're lucky to have two very, very important guests who have had experience of growth and scale at a very quick rate. So I think it's some really good points to come out of this. Heather, could you just introduce yourself first to everyone?
Sure. Hi, I'm Heather Brunner. I'm the CEO of a company called WP Engine. I'm also a 25-year technology vet and have been involved in both large companies and helping to scale startups from inception all the way through to IPO and beyond. WP Engine is a platform and technology company to help businesses that are building their websites and applications on WordPress. So we're trying to take the beauty of everything about open source of WordPress, but helping it to be robust and scalable for businesses of all sizes. So we work with everyone from small individual startups and agencies who run their business on WordPress all the way up to large Fortune 500 companies who are using WordPress more and more for their digital content management.
Brilliant. And Evan.
Hey, everybody. I'm Evan from Teespring, and I started this company, Teespring, in 2011 after graduating from university, and since then we've scaled to over 500 employees. What does Teespring do? We are a platform that allows you to create and sell products online. So it's a tool for entrepreneurs to use to really easily get up and running with an e-commerce business where we produce everything that they're creating, and all they have to worry about is the design and the audience, and then they can get their businesses running. So it's a tool that thousands of entrepreneurs use, and many people have even become millionaires selling products through our platform.
Awesome.
Wow. And just to give you a quick introduction to myself, my name is Ross Kingsland, founder and CEO of Inception Growth, and what I basically do is help organizations go from seed funding to Series A through a growth accelerator. So, or growth hacking, whatever you want to describe it as. But what we're here is really interested in some of the challenges of scaling, and particularly when scaling is too fast, and it's almost putting the cart before the horse, to use the expression. So Evan, I'm quite interested in how you knew when was right to start scaling appropriately.
So I mean, I think this question is a little, like the topic is, it's kind of like good problems to have. Like when you're scaling so fast that like you're scaling too fast. Like I don't know exactly like how many people in this audience are having those types of issues, or whether maybe in some cases it's actually more about like how can I scale. For us, you know, for a long time we're struggling to find a way to get any scale. And then when our users kind of found this way of leveraging Teespring to build their businesses, and the word started getting out about that, all of a sudden we just started growing really quickly. And you know, as fast as we were growing at some times, I would never say that it was too fast, but it was also never in my control. So I think that, you know, if you're in the dream scenario is the one in which you find a growth lever that you can control, and you know that if you spend, you know, X dollars into this marketing channel, you're going to get this much growth. And if you have a story like that that you can tell, then you probably have no issues raising money whatsoever, because it's a very like controllable input-output type situation. For us, it was you know, these kind of rapid growth spurts, and then we would hit stumbling blocks along the way. It wasn't ever our intention not to grow as fast as we possibly could. We didn't intentionally try to slow down our growth at all. But certainly we ran into numerous challenges as a result of that.
And yeah, so I would say similar. So again, we've never had to kind of consciously say, let's stop. But I think there's times where we maybe wish we would have. So our business, WP Engine's a 5.5-year-old company. And the first few years, it was growing at more than 200% per year. So very, very rapid growth with a founder, my partner and founder for WP Engine, basically had bootstrapped, this is his fourth startup, so he had bootstrapped all of his previous 3 companies. And so with WP Engine, he basically experienced tremendous growth as a bootstrapper, and then finally realized in order for him to really achieve the scale and to basically go after the growth, he had to raise money. And that's actually how I got to know him, was through that first round of raising money. I then joined the board of directors really to try to help him think about how to build an executive team, how to take that money and build a plan to drive scale and growth for the business and take advantage of the huge market opportunity. And there were times where he had to basically, right before I started, we had to basically stop marketing. We had to stop doing anything because it was so fast. We couldn't absorb it. And then about last year, we had last spring of 14, we actually got to a place that we had scaled so much that it was causing a negative customer experience. And so we had to basically stop and reevaluate and put more energy and focus around making sure that our technology was working, make sure that our support team had the right level of support, et cetera. So we had to basically kind of stop and slow down and say, wow, what is causing this, and how do we make sure that we're delivering on the promise to our customers while we're experiencing this huge growth?
And I think that's probably the interesting thing with this discussion is that there's always this dynamic tension between are we scaling fast enough or are we scaling too fast? You know, and it's almost, can we take our foot off the pedal, or have we got the acceleration just right? Because I've seen that happen in many companies that have just imploded or haven't even been able to get traction from the beginning.
I mean, I think a lot of times, I would not liken, at least for us, I would not liken our startup to a car where you can like decide you want to give it more gas or not. I would more liken it to a boulder that's rolling down a hill, and it's like it took us this long to push this big boulder up the hill, and then once we start rolling, it's not really in our control at that point how fast it's going to go or how far we're going to go. I think they say like growth solves all problems. I haven't heard of any companies that grew so fast that they failed. You know, like it's kind of like a little bit of a. I don't know if that's necessarily the tension that I would say, like, should we grow faster, should we not? I think it's a lot of times it ends up just being about, it's sort of self-controlled, right? If you grow too fast, your customer experience starts to decline, and then that's a natural, you have to, you as a company definitely have to put the focus towards improving the customer experience. And that's the same thing that we went through. We went through a phase of rapid growth, and then we had one Christmas where orders were like twice as much as we thought, and people were waiting, 3 weeks to get their T-shirts. And in the year after that, we invested all this money into infrastructure, into building out our own facility so that we could guarantee ship times. So it does change your focus as a company, but it's not necessarily that you're saying, let's grow slower. It's just, let's put our focus into a part of the business that's going to make this more sustainable, more scalable.
Well, I think one of the things, so when we, about 2 years ago, we were at a place where if we were to kind of keep going with our growth trajectory, in about 24 months, we would be at 5x the size in every dimension, 5x revenue, 5x sales, 5x customers, et cetera. And so 2 years ago, we had we just raised a round, and so we're kind of saying we had to put together our 5x plan. And so that was a big focus for all of us, and say, let's actually plot out, if we're to keep this growth trajectory, what do we need to have in terms of, what do we have to invest in ourselves in terms of systems to run the business? What do we need to invest in on behalf of our customers? And what do we have to invest in to keep inventing the future of where we're going to platforms? So we put together plans across all those areas and have been executing against it, and we've just now hit those milestones, those 5x milestones now after 2 years, and it's been because of that, I think because of that focus, but not to say we didn't hit speed bumps or have issues along the way. And in any startup, I always say that some team, at least one team, if not more than two teams, are kind of in the hole at any given time, like they're behind, something's happening to them, and you're having to kind of compensate. And I'd say that phenomenon continues, to happen even to this day. Even though our company continues, to be, to have, strong success and to have that momentum, at any given moment, a strain is being put somewhere on the when you're growing rapidly.
Because I mean, the scalability of any product or service is one of the things that most investors will look at, particularly when they're going through different series round funding. Are there what recommendations would you give to a startup here about how to start to develop that? Maybe it's a question of developing that mindset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole panel topic makes me think about one of my favorite essays by Paul Graham, which is actually called "Do Things That Don't Scale." One of the more recent ones, and I think that investors can sometimes they can see things that could be scaled. That doesn't mean that you need to prove that they're scalable by actually having them be scalable from square one. So my advice to early stage companies is actually not to try to make everything scalable. It's to make things as unscalable as possible. To do things that you could never do as a large company, because that's what's going to differentiate you from the big competitor that has all the scalability and those types of things thought out.
But doesn't have the innovation.
Doesn't have the innovation, doesn't have the scrappiness, isn't going to be the one that, you know, does a bunch of random things behind the scenes to make it work. Like if someone orders, you know, and they need it the next day, and you're that founder that's literally driving around to like get the product and like do this other thing and like drive it to the person's door and like
answering the phone,
right,
taking the ticket, right.
So those are the things that don't scale that you can do early stage and that you'll do to wow your customers and to prove that this is a experience that people will want and that it's worth scaling. And I think that's a lot of times what VCs will kind of latch onto. They'll say, is this something that people love enough that if it was scaled, tons of people would engage with it? But doesn't mean that it needs to scale like day one.
Right. I think another big part of that is also that you talk about the grittiness and the scrappiness and that spirit that happens when you're a startup. And part of when you do grow, like I know you've grown to 500 employees, we're more than 300 employees, and a lot of that growth has just happened in the last 2 years is you have to scale that culture, that mindset. And so that's another big thing that we're constantly focused on is how do we not lose what's made us special, that humanity, that grit of being a startup. And so I think that's another thing that if people really genuinely, all the employees believe in that, then they're able to help bring forth and kind of get through those times when they're the team that's in the hole. They're the team that's kind of having to pull from behind to catch up to whatever's happening in the business.
So that's interesting. I was doing a panel on here this morning and we were talking about hiring, and if you're thinking about hiring for scale as well, obviously you need to consider more about culture and how that starts to develop. I was just wondering what your experiences were on that.
Well, I actually really like what you said because I know that you were brought in to be the CEO of a company that was actually founded by others, and it's the same struggle that we've gone through where my co-founder and I graduated from college and started Teespring, so we lack any like technical skill set for being executives, and we've had to be very self-conscious of that and aware that we have limitations as leaders and that we need to hire other people on. But what you often find is that as you make those decisions about who to hire on, you'll face some sort of balancing between, do we want people who have the perfect skill set, who have done it before? Do we want people who align with us more culturally?
Right.
And I feel like it's really important, and I'm really glad that you said this, to make sure that that attitude of startup energy and focus and like momentum stays with the company even as you start to bring in more people, and that you hire other executives and leaders in the company who care about that.
Absolutely. And I think it's hugely important. So not only in terms of bringing in leaders, executive leaders, or other people who help complement, like one of the things we talk about is superpowers. Everybody has their superpowers. So even though you maybe have not run another company before, you have superpowers that you can put and apply to the company. And there's other people that can if everyone's playing to their strengths, then you can really go forth and make great things happen. So I think that's one thing, is allowing people to kind of focus on their strengths versus having a lot of people, particularly I think, early founders who kind of tend to focus on their weaknesses and, I've got to do this. Like, don't worry about that. Just focus on what you do and build the team around you. Then I think for hiring, for us it's really important for us to codify our core values, who we are, what we stand for, so that as we grew, that those could be used as a touchstone for hiring. They could be used for, we could ask people examples for how they exemplified those. And I think another big thing is if you're walking the talk and if you're treating everybody like business owners, then they're going to refer employees. So 60% of our employees have been referred by another employee. And so I think that, again, so if everything kind of fuels together to make it easier to keep, retain people and to attract new people, is if you kind of bring that. But again, to scale hiring means you have to be very clear about, to enable that to be distributed, to be very clear about what are you hiring for, what is the bar, and making sure that you're aligning every hire to your core values.
And we'll go for a question from the floor in a minute, but what would be, Evan, maybe if you go first, what would be your one piece of advice to a startup who's thinking of how do I scale?
My one piece of advice would be to be mindful about how you scale, and even if things get tough, even if situations arise that feel like they need immediate resolution, you will put in place things that will end up being with the company for years afterwards. So it's worth taking that extra time to think about who are we bringing into the team, or what policies are we putting in place? If we're doing like a referral program, does it expire eventually? Like, think about the long term of your company, because that's where the value of your company lies, is in its future. And try to have that guide your decision making just as much as the immediacy and the immediate problems that you're facing.
Nice.
The one thing I would say is if you're scaling really rapidly, it's really important for you to have alignment. And so one of the things that, as much as you can, we practice open book management. So what that means is that every employee, no matter what level you are, no matter what role you are, if you're an intern or you're an executive, everyone knows the key performance indicators and the financials of the company. Everyone can read our P&L. They know where we stand every day on our performance as a company. And that creates a level of ownership and excitement about the business. People know what they can be involved in, and I think that, again, that causes people to say, this is my company, so therefore I'm going to give my best. I'm going to find problems. I'm going to be the one, if nobody's answering the phone, I'm going to be the one to pick it up. I'm going to kind of get that. So I think it's really important, for as much as you can, create that sense of business ownership.
Cool. I think we're going to the floor now for some questions.
Thank you for a great talk. I have a question for Evan.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you couldn't quite identify the levers that you could attribute to your explosive growth. But I was still curious about what you tried to do to identify those levers, even if it didn't really work out at the end.
Yeah. Okay. So
Just repeat the question.
His question is basically, if we couldn't identify the levers to our growth, what did we do to try to discover what those were? Maybe like understanding what kind of things did we try as well to grow. My answer is that there are no easy answers when it comes to growth. Often, if you think that you can just like a lot of times you're thinking, oh, I'll just go on I'll buy Google AdWords or some kind of like scalable marketing strategy, and those types of things. Even like having a sales team, like all of those things were really not effective for us early. And the one thing that actually eventually got us going was when our product started to add so much value to certain user groups that they just had to tell everybody about it. So I really believe in organic growth. I believe in word of mouth growth. And I think the way you get there is when you have good product market fit, you wow your users. If they can be the most interesting person at the dinner table telling everyone else about your product, then that's when you start to grow in a meaningful way. I think that's what finally drove us. I don't know if you want to answer that or one more.
Hi, thank you. Do you get the whole team in an early stage startup to engage in growth, or do you try and separate that?
Do you get the whole team?
Absolutely, the whole team.
The whole team involved in growth?
Yeah.
So I say yes. I mean, I think we always say everyone's recruiting, everyone's selling, and everyone's servicing. So we kind of have that mentality. I think also back to the whole thing about open book management is also being open about what your goals are. So being very clear, like what are the strategic priorities? What are then the goals for each team to go get that? And having that really clear view around what is our trajectory, what are our objectives for growth, and have everybody feel like they're aligned to it. Absolutely. Evan?
Yeah, I think that sometimes you'll have different parts of the company where like you said, some people are servicing. So like for us, it's like the people who are fulfilling the products, and then the people who are trying to grow the company. And there is a balance there. It's like when one side of the company does their job really well, the growth side, then the other people's jobs become really difficult, and it's sort of back and forth. But I think everyone is pushing towards that. Everyone's aligning for the same goals. And the more you can get people to like Heather said, alignment into one kind of shared goal where we're all pulling together towards, that's going to result in more effective performance by the employees versus something where there's less clarity of how everything rolls up into one master kind of mission.
And I think back to your answer to the other gentleman's question, which is, for us, the greatest driver of our growth is word of mouth and other customers referring our business to others. So everyone is selling. So no matter any interaction that you have with a customer is an opportunity to wow them, for them to then help refer someone else. So in that way, everyone does feel that sense of ownership, whether I'm fulfilling or I'm in support. or also, of course, sales is driving. They have specific targets, but everyone knows that ecosystem, that word of mouth, we have to nourish it together as a business. You're welcome.
Okay. How about a big round of applause? Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Evan, Heather,